At the time, though, I was also told that there are other possible side effects from using those medications for a long time, and I should only use it as needed. But every time I went off it after I thought I was getting better, I eventually ended up getting another really bad bowel and had to end up getting onto it or a new one. I've been through like three or four different ones at this point. I don't even remember. Um, so that was some of the GI issues for upper GI, and it feels like they kind of traveled downwards as I got older. Whenever I was in high school, um, of course, I still had the nervous stomach and would still sometimes like sporadically throw up, but it wasn't nearly as often, and it was usually stress related. Um, but I had let's see, it was my appendix decided to rupture. Um, that wasn't fun at all. Um, in the appendix, um, I'm sure you may or may not know, probably you do, but if that ruptures and you don't get it treated within a very short amount of time, it can be fatal. Um, and you see what had happened was like, uh, I was at my boarding school and I told my mom that like I had like there was some social event that was happening like over the weekend, and I said, "Oh no, I'm just tired. I'm gonna go lie down back in my room." And my mom apparently was really caught off guard by that. She's like, "Oh, there's no way you would miss out on being social. So there's something definitely wrong with you." And then she, was like, "Okay, go to the school nurse." And that was like on Monday that I was able to go to the infirmary, and then she gave me some Pepto-Bismol, which by the way is not what you want to do to somebody who like that's actually worse for an appendix. It's on the way out. Um, and she basically called and harassed the school and got them to get me taken to a hospital. Um, and then they did like a CAT scan and stuff, and they do like the whole nuclear dye thing that goes through, and they're like, "Oh yeah, you have appendicitis. We can't let you leave here." Um, and it was so bad. Like they got out just in time, like as it was like really like bursting, like as it was like going out as it went out. And but I had to stay in the hospital for like 3 days to get the infection drained from my body because that was I had like really high fever the whole time too. So they caught it kind of just a few seconds, almost kind of too late, but I didn't die, so whatever. Um, but that was an issue, and it just kind of came out of nowhere. But I mean, that was all along the same lines of just GI problems. Um, let's see, and then I recovered from that pretty quick though. Um, and then it wasn't until after my first year in college that my GI problems were starting to get even worse, especially for the lower GI. Um, I don't know how gruesome details I want to get here, but I'll just say there was some blood in some places that there shouldn't have been as it relates to my GI tract. And it was kind of freaking me out, as it would most people. And, this is when I officially got diagnosed with IBS. And, that's like super common these days. Again, I mean, you look at the food we're eating these days, it's just terrible processed junk. So, lo and behold, things like irritable bowel syndrome, um, irritable, um, what was it? Not just irritable bowel, but also inflammatory bowel disease. Um, things like Crohn's and like cancers of the colon and the intestinal tract are just so common and rampant these days. Um, because of the food that we are ingesting because of what's available. It's not just, oh, you made bad choices. It's like, no, no, I made cheap choices. You have to spend a pretty penny to eat good food sometimes, or just have the time to be able to make your own. And that's something that between time and money, very few people have one or both of those. Um, and So that being said, having IBS, it's kind of a covered term, and they don't really tell you any details whatsoever about like what exactly that means. It's basically just like, well, something's wrong. We can't figure out what's wrong. I went on maybe 5 or 6 different medications. None of them fixed anything. They actually just made it, they over fixed the problem and then gave me a new issue, basically. Um, and then there's, what was it? Um, there's IBS, and then there's also I got tested for a bunch of things like ulcerative colitis, Crohn's. They tried to say that I had celiac disease, aka that gluten was causing the problem, which really that's an oversimplification of the problem, as I've learned as well, because gluten is actually really bad for people who have issues with inflammatory issues in themselves, which technically speaking, uh, IBS is an inflammatory issue in that so much that it deals with, the immune system's nervous response, and your body will have an inflammatory response towards food as if it's like a foreign thing that's attacking it because it doesn't want to process it right. Whenever your body doesn't know what to do, it just kind of puffs up and inflames. That's just what it does. Um, because it doesn't know what else to do. It's like whenever you have an allergic reaction to something, basically, and you know that's technically what inflammatory bowel disease is classified as. Even though I had high inflammatory markers, but they're like, oh no, you don't actually have IBD, and there's all this crazy amount of testing I went through, and it was just no results. Nothing was really conclusive. Um, and it got to a point, it got worse after my car accident, which I think that might have been because I had induced a hiatal hernia. Like there was a little injury right at the top of my stomach, like at the base of the esophagus. Um, but it was too small to operate on. But I had to go back on again another proton pump inhibitor. Um, and it was just a bad time because basically it got worse and worse. It really peaked about uh 2019, 2020 when I was, getting back up in the weight and just having a really hard time. It got to the point where it was like Russian roulette. I would be like, okay, if I'm going to go somewhere, I don't need to eat food because I don't know if that food's going to make it to where I feel so miserable that I need to physically lie down to just let it pass because it would make me feel inflamed. Like, some people think of it like indigestion, like, oh, okay, you're burping a lot, but it's like, no, no, it's more than that. It's like, it's so bad that it's crowding. It makes me feel like so full and so inflamed, and I can't get any relief from it that like it's hard for me to breathe. And so, uh, trying to explain that to, a dime a dozen, all these GI doctors, I went through like 4 of them before I finally found a good one. Um, and they really don't know how to help you. They're like, well, here's this medication. If it doesn't work and you're not testing positive for any of these other things, or you don't literally have cancer, you know, deal with it. Um, and so, all these things, they were kind of the ongoing struggle throughout my whole life, just dealing with this. And this is only just part of it. I mean, there's still so much more. Uh, and but it got really, really bad at that point, to so much so that, you know, there I've had so many colonoscopies and endoscopies, doctors shoving cameras in you, just trying to look around and see, hey, where's the inflammation? Hey, what's going on? And every time it would come up inconclusive, and it's just like, well, we don't really know what's going on. But here, I guess we'll give you some antibiotics to flush out your systems, to reset your gut flora and all that stuff. And it's just there was never any relief. So what ended up happening is I ended up going to UAB, and I saw a doctor there that someone had recommended, and he took one look at all my records, It took me, I had to get in to see him. I had to wait 3 months. Like, but it was worth it because he took one look at everything and he's like, okay, here, have this medication. Is actually used of all things to treat nerve damage. Um, which I would just like, what? This makes no sense. But I gave it about a week and a half. I had some weird sleeping side effects, some weird dreams. But once my body adapted to it, it kind of just fixed it. I'm thinking what the issue is that, and again, I still do have IBS technically, but like a lot of the inflammatory issues were resolved because I think what happened is that, either something with the hiatal hernia or just over time degradation of nerves and how like the nerves don't connect properly to everywhere in my digestive system. So whenever I'm digesting food, my body's just like, we're under attack sometimes. Um, and this helps with that. Like it's amazing. Like it's I, you know, and so I'd made like this mental note. I was like I'm gonna get back on the weight loss track after uh after I get these things settled. And I'm not gonna get these things settled uh, by talking to all these different doctors. Like they're not helping me. So once I finally got them settled, then I was like, okay, cool. Now I get back on the weight loss track, and that's kind of what I did. That was in 2021, and then 2022 was the year I made the most progress after trying some other things in the latter part of 2021. But the like because like the only thing that really stopped me from losing weight back in 2017, like I said, there's a car accident, and right after that, so I actually got my gallbladder out. Because oh yeah, another bonus fun thing with my unhealthy way of weight loss I was doing before, with overloading on fiber pills and stuff like that, that uh that actually also resulted in like my gallbladder getting kicked out. Like if you lose weight really fast, your gallbladder is gonna probably come out soon too. Just by the way, and mine was already on the border, and that was a whole other issue. It required months of um of recovery. It was really painful and really bad and really really uncomfortable. So yeah, I've lost a good number of elective organs. I've lost my tonsils, adenoids, appendix, gallbladder. Could probably stand to lose a kidney. Not that I'm, volunteering myself for that, but it's, I mean, you only need one kidney, so uh, I could get rid of that if I needed to. I think I'm just about done removing parts though for now.
Yeah, it sounds like yeah, you've definitely been through a big journey when it comes to losing things for sure, getting all that out of you. So, wow, what a journey that you've been on for sure. I'm glad that things this year have progressed, like in the positive direction. So I'm definitely glad to hear that. And there are a couple of things that you've mentioned that I can even relate to as far as my health when it comes to a sickness or an illness kind of thing. But before I mentioned that one, I guess the first one that one thing that affected me was, I guess, when I was like 6 or 7, I started having like breathing problems and went to the doctor, ended up being told that I have asthma. So that was like my first like thing when it came to health. That was like a struggle for me, especially during my younger years. Now that I'm older, it's not as bad as it used to be. It can get bad like even though I like cats, but I can't be around cats that are indoors. Like I don't mind like seeing some stray cats that sometimes we take care of and see them for a few minutes, but for the most part I can't be around cats too long because it starts like affecting my lungs and my breathing. So there's moments like that where it could be a challenge, but for the most part it's been better. During my younger years, it made it to where I couldn't play sports as much because it would just take my breath like away. And I mean, I ended up playing soccer for like 1 year, and after that, my body was just like, I don't think you can handle it. So that was definitely a challenge. So asthma was the first thing.